Welcome back to this week's TV episode, episode 4. Last week, Trevor and I touched on the advantage of using a staffing agency from the hiring manager or a client's perspective. This week, we definitely want to touch on what it's like to work with an agency as a candidate or someone that would be working with us to find a new role. So if you were looking to find any more of that information that we posed last week, we're going to drop that link in the comments. So feel free to check out that video from last week. But Trevor, I'm going to throw it over to you. What's one of the main advantages of working with a recruiter?
Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest advantages is, looking at some of those stats we touched on in last week's video. One of those being that, according to JobBite, only 1% of career page and job portal applicants actually get those jobs. Coupled with LinkedIn stating that, 85% of jobs actually aren't posted online at all. So working with a recruiter really opens the doors to new roles that you might not be finding when you're doing your searching, and also having somebody that has a good relationship with that client already. It allows you to have somebody that goes to bat for you, after your interviews. It allows you to have kind of real-time feedback on how those interviews went. You should, as long as everything's going correctly with the recruiter you have, you should be doing post-interview debriefs where you give some feedback and then you also garner some feedback from them. So I think that's a huge, advantage. It allows you to kind of reshift the odds and stack them in your favor. So knowing that, and also knowing just how many recruiters there are out there, I'll kick it back to Vince. I'd love to know how you, would suggest that some of the viewers find out if they're working with, a recruiter that has their best interest at heart.
In terms of finding, the right recruiter for you, it's really a relationship that you're building with that person. Just from the jump, you want to make sure that that person's diving deep into your background and truly understanding, what sets you apart, skill set wise, what you're very competent in, some of the things you might be lacking in or trying to learn more about, and ultimately finding out what those opportunities are for you as a recruiter. That's part of their job, is identifying what opportunities do you really want to be open to and passionate about. So getting a better sense of you as an individual is definitely key. One of our division directors, Sharam, has a great video series talking about what separates a good recruiter from a great recruiter. Definitely recommend checking that out. We'll tag him in this video as well, just so you can get a good sense of him and his industry knowledge, and really getting a deeper dive into that separation that elevates the level of a recruiter.
And I think one of my favorite things that Sharam touches on in that series is, great for a recruiter, but also for, anybody in their personal and professional, lives. And it's the importance of a no update. Communication is tough for everybody, personally and professionally. And I think that is something that even I've, tried incorporating a lot more, is instead of just letting there be that days of radio silence if there's no update, just let them know that there is no update. Just keep that channel of communication open, and you'd be amazed at how much that actually can impact any relationship, but especially one between a candidate and a recruiter.
So I think that's great advice for someone who's actively pursuing their next opportunity. But Trevor, is there an advantage to working with a recruiter or having a relationship with a recruiter if I'm not actively looking for a new job?
Absolutely, there is. As we all know, especially after the last year, things can change, in an instant. So I think it's always good to have, a good relationship built with a great recruiter. But also, they're actively sourcing and working with new roles, new companies all the time. And it's things that, especially when you're passively seeking, or if you're not seeking at all, there are opportunities that you oftentimes wouldn't even be aware of. So I think it's always good to have a pulse on the market, and have somebody that kind of has a feel for what you would be looking for. And if they know you're passive, chances are they're going to make sure it's a, vertical move and not just a lateral move. So I think it's always great to have those relationships, and it is important to know everything there will be completely confidential. It's not like they're going to be walking around town telling people, oh, Vince, he's got a job and I'm helping him find a new one. They're going to be pretty confidential about that. So I think it's never a bad idea to have a great recruiter in your corner.
Definitely, and that just goes along with what we touched on, is building that relationship, having that trusted advisor in a recruiter, that can potentially offer you those opportunities, or at least show you what's out there. Even if it's not a move that you make, they can keep you tapped into potential moves that you might make.
So Vince, let's pretend I'm somebody who's never partnered with a recruiter before. Give me kind of a rundown of what I can expect that process to look like as a candidate.
Sure. So obviously I can speak to the experience of, what we do here at Swoon, but, setting up an initial call, talk about your background, in our case, your tech stack, or what your portfolio looks like, your specialties, maybe some of the things that you might be lacking in or don't have as much experience in, diving into, what have you been doing in your previous roles? What are those tangible results in those projects that you've been working on? Because that's really what a lot of hiring managers want to know. It's not just those technical skills, but it's how have you actually implemented them to, gain success or garner success for your current or your previous organization. So getting to know that, and really just understanding, where are you looking to go? Are you looking for fully remote? Obviously that's something that we really have to talk about now. Potential salary compensation, just so that we're showing you opportunities that fall in line with something you'd accept. We're not just throwing everything at you.
And then, once I were to find an opportunity that did interest me, what does that look like for me? Do you coordinate the interviews? Do I do everything myself? Do I talk directly to the hiring manager throughout this process?
Well, hopefully that's an opportunity that recruiter has presented to you, and really, for an organization that's well run, and for a recruiter that's doing their job effectively, and even as us as sales, as BDMs, to get into on that process, we script that out for you, so that, we're contacting the hiring manager, we're getting those interviews set up, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, what have you. Those meetings are set up, the time slots, making sure you're available, making sure it's a transparent process on both sides, so that we can really, help facilitate that process to make it as smooth. Obviously interviewing and finding a new job can be a very stressful experience, especially if you're doing it alone. So I think just having, a team that's dedicated to doing that and to bringing you through that process, is an extreme advantage.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with all of that insight.
Just a couple examples of really those advantages that comes with working with the recruiter, from that candidate side. So obviously Trevor and I work in different verticals, him being in the creative digital space, myself in the cloud and data professionals. So moving into next week, we do want to dive a little bit deeper into each of our verticals to give you a better picture of kind of what we're seeing in the market, and, assist any hiring managers or potential candidates to kind of let you know what that market's looking like. So we will see you next week, episode 5 coming at you.
Cheers.